If you're thinking about skipping the crowds this Valentine's Day, I have the perfect date night dinner to make at home. Welcome back to my Dutch oven series. Today we are making these beef tenderloin tips in the Dutch oven. These are so yummy. We're doing a mushroom and onion pan sauce. So creamy, so delicious, so let's get started. The first thing you want to do for this recipe is go ahead and pull those beef tenderloin tips out of the fridge. Before I cooked a lot, I was always worried about my meat being at room temperature, but the thing about it is you don't really want to put freezing cold meat onto the Dutch oven or the grill because it's like too much of a temperature drop and it's not going to be as juicy at the end. So what we're looking for this recipe is tenderloin tips. So we want beef tenderloin tips. If you want to get a cheaper cut of meat, you could definitely look for sirloin tips. It's just not going to be as tender of a product, but it's okay too. If you're only cooking for just 2 people, you might be okay with like 1.5 pounds or less, but my daughters are gonna be here tonight and they love steak, so I'm gonna go with a little bit under 2.5 pounds. That will feed us all. One of my favorite things about this recipe too is it goes good with anything side dish wise. You could do baked potatoes, mashed potatoes, you could do rice or pasta. It really just goes on everything. For the most part, these look really good. If there's any giant chunks of fat on them, you can definitely just shave some of it off. And then as far as like the shape goes, just make sure they're similar in sizing. We don't want like giant tips and then tiny ones because they're not gonna cook evenly in the pan. I think one of my favorite things about steak bites is they look so elegant and fancy, but they're seriously so easy to make and they're super quick too. As far as our ingredients go for chopping, we wanna chop up some mushrooms. I'm using cremini mushrooms here. You could also do like baby bellas. But you want to just cut these into nice little slices. We definitely want to be able to see them with the steak. We're also using some yellow onion, give that a nice dice. And then we've got some fresh parsley. I like flat leaf over curly for this, but you want to just mince that up nice. We're going to add it right at the end. And then we've got 2 garlic cloves to add a lot of flavor. So give those a really good mince. All right, so next we are going to season our steak tips. Just like my burgers, I want these really simple. So I want salt, pepper, Worcestershire sauce, and then I'm going to do a little bit of thyme. And I'm talking about like 1/8 teaspoon of dried thyme. I don't want anything crazy on here. So we're just gonna hit this with some salt and pepper. That's gonna be our main focus. And then the Worcestershire sauce, I know I'm like adding more syllables into that. I struggle on camera saying that, but it just helps to break the meat down a little bit. So I really like to have that on there and sit it for about 30 minutes at room temperature. And this is actually gonna sit on the countertop while we cook our mushrooms and onions first in the Dutch oven. This is also gonna have a pan sauce on it, so you don't need to worry about like totally over seasoning it because it's gonna taste delicious with the pan sauce. Okay, next up we're gonna come over to our Dutch oven. We have a 7-quart here. I think it's 7 quart. 6-quart. We're gonna just cook about 1 tablespoon of butter on medium-low heat, and then we're gonna add in those mushrooms and onions and really cook them down until they're nice and softened. Also gonna add a pinch of salt. I'm doing about 1/2 teaspoon. And we're gonna cover these and cook them for about 4 minutes. I like to uncover halfway through and give them a good stir. Next up, just add in that garlic and give this a stir. You're gonna cook this for about 60 seconds. Okay, so once we get those mushrooms, onions, and garlic cooked, we're gonna transfer these to a bowl, and we want nothing in our Dutch oven except for like the leftover yummy juices that these veggies made. Hey, so I wanna know in the comments below, those of you who have kids and are staying at home, are you getting rid of them? Are they going to grandparents' house? After like years of marriage, we don't really celebrate Valentine's Day, but we will make a good meal, so that's good. But our kids are definitely staying home, especially if we're having steak. There's no way they're leaving. We're gonna cook our steak bites on medium heat, so we wanna increase the heat just a little bit. You might have to do 2 batches of meat if you're gonna go like over 2 pounds. It gets a little bit tight in there, and they're gonna cook better if you do 2 batches. As I'm cooking my steak tips, I like to move them around a little bit because the front of my Dutch oven always likes to sear better than the back, so you can definitely move them around a little bit. I would say cook them between about 2 to 5 minutes on each side, depending how you like them. For a medium center, you're looking for about 140 degrees. I always use this internal thermometer. It is like one of my favorite things. It's a Thermapen. I'm in love with it. It like changed my whole idea of cooking meat. Now it's so much easier. I usually pull mine about 140 degrees or so, and then I'm just gonna transfer it to a plate, and we are gonna deglaze our pan with some red wine. And you wanna turn this to low heat now, and just give it a good scrape with a wooden spoon to get all those brown bits, all that flavor up. Next, you're gonna add in heavy cream and 1 tablespoon of butter and just stir this up. We're gonna add our mushrooms and onions back in and our steak and stir this so it gets all saucy. These look so good. One thing I love about this pan sauce is that it doesn't separate really easy. If it does for some reason, just add like another tablespoon of butter and stir it in. It's totally fine. It's not a super saucy recipe, so it's not gonna like ruin it. But you wanna serve this right away. I like to add a little bit of parsley to the top. Like I said, you can serve this with rice, you could serve it with pasta or potatoes. Mashed potatoes would be so yummy, or scalloped potatoes, yum. That's it, we're all done with these beef tenderloin steak tips. I hope you guys love this recipe. It is the perfect date night meal and it cooks all in the Dutch oven. If you haven't already, make sure to sign up for my newsletter. I'm doing a Dutch oven series, so you can sign up for that below. If you just got a Dutch oven or if you just need more recipe ideas, this is a great way to get a ton of fresh ideas. Thanks so much for watching and I'll see you next week. Bye. That sauce is so good. Really nice and rich. Perfect.